Hey everyone, I'm back in the shop here. Do a little video on my Indy SR heads. These are circa, I don't know, late 90s, real late 99, 2000 maybe, I don't know. They have the updated combustion chamber that the SRs had and stuff, but this is my valve spring removal setup. I spoke about it in a video before. Now I already went through and took the inner valve springs out of these, but I noticed a couple things that I just wasn't comfortable with, so I wanted to come back in and pop it apart again and inspect it. And yeah, I'm gonna take them apart and do a little work. So I don't know if you ever seen one of these Mancini in-car valve tools. These are older. There's the exhaust side. They're supposed to be set up so you can use them in a car, but my headers actually push up and interfere with them in my brake master cylinder, so it doesn't really work great for that. But if you get the right length bolts and stuff so you don't strip out the head and set it up, it's a pretty powerful valve spring tool. I got one hand working here because I'm using a phone like always, but to just use it on a bench. Now you just take one of these, I'm on the wrong cylinder, but take one of these blocks of wood and shove it underneath into the chamber, you know, to simulate your air pressure in a cylinder if you're using it in the car. And the head of the valve will bump that, and you just pull it down, pop it out, do your business. Definitely harder with the inner springs in, but this works pretty good. It's not the fastest setup. It's not like one of those air-powered valve spring tools, but definitely better than the ones you gotta squeeze with your hand, the big one that goes around. That's more for stock stuff. But these are max wedge size ports. I cut these myself quite a long time ago. And just showing you when you take apart your heads and valves and stuff, I just use a plastic baggie and label them. That way you can keep everything together. Your shim, whatever goes with each cylinder, valve. I also noticed now that these are, I think it's burning a little oil. So I'm gonna have to clean these up. The valve job's so good, it's pretty new actually. But and that's a lot of fuel too and stuff from using that bigger cam. But the valve stems were definitely like oily, and you could tell inside the chambers were on the intakes had some, you know, I don't think it was just fuel. Plus you could tell the seals weren't holding the valves very well when I slid them out. They've been apart quite a few times, so I'm sure dragging the lock groove across them, I know it shaves a little stuff off there sometimes. So I'm just gonna get a new set. And while I have this apart instead of putting it together. Plus I want to do a little more porting. I'm going to take you over and show you the other head I have apart already. There's the block hanging out in the back. It's just organized chaos I work in. It's lunacy. So here we go. I might have to use my headlamp here as a light to let you actually see what I'm going to show you. There we go. So I ported these chambers and stuff quite a long time ago, and the chambers actually came out pretty good, but there's a few spots now that I've studied a little more that I want to kind of update, if you know what I'm saying. Like around the valve guide boss, I never touched that back when I did it the first time because I didn't have a long enough carbide, and I didn't have really enough spare change to just buy a bunch of shit like that. So I just cartridge rolled the underside. These have been bowl ported from Indy supposedly. I don't really trust them. Don't use Indy. Use Indy if you buy it from a vendor and have the vendor do with the stuff, you know what I'm saying? So I gotta order some stuff. I totally forgot about not touching those valve guides actually. So when I saw it, or the valve guide bosses, when I saw it, I was like, oh man, why didn't I do that? I'm gonna have to update that. And right in this area above, I don't know why that has a flash function. Get in here. It's kind of cruddy. I sprayed some WD-40 in here. That's why it's so wet, because I was trying to clean them up. But this section here, from about here to about here, needs to be laid back a little. If I can get in there. Still some carbon stuck on the head, but it's not very much. that needs to be laid back on the intake area here. This bulge is, it's not like a huge bulge, but here is a lot better coming off the seat. Here is better. Here is better. It's hard, you know, what the problem I had back then too is I was afraid to hit the seat. That's why I didn't want to reach in here, because I didn't have a long enough cutter. But also I just learned a trick I never even thought of just a couple days ago, or just yesterday maybe. Like I said, that's all WD-40 because I was cleaning out some scum. But you can get, they buy, well, they don't buy, but they get a hold of an intake valve and they just basically ruin it with a knife edge 45 cut and sink it way down. So you can put your cutter in here, cartridge roll or whatever, and lay this back without worrying about hitting the seat because the valve's in there protecting it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna need an intake and exhaust valve and have it ground back there and lay that back some more on all this stuff. I got it apart now, I might as well do it. This guy is actually worse than some of the other ones. You see how this rolls a little too fat right here. It needs to be laid out in this section here and this edge taken away. So that's what I'm gonna do with that. Yeah, so that, I mean, that should help. A little flow. Those valves I don't think are back cut, but they're very slim. They're not, I gotta clean them up and inspect it again. I might just barely stone them myself if I can hand do it with a little stone. But I mean, it'll be pretty minimal, so I don't even know if it's worth doing, you know, endangering the valve seal, valve seat and stuff just to do that. But yeah, so I got these apart. They're actually really smooth. I mean, they're obviously dirty as shit, but I took quite a long time smoothing them years ago when I had them apart, but they work well. I mean, this motor, even with the 4093 and when it was a 440, would rev well past 7,000 and not fall on its face. So, you know, I just like doing this work, and it's like, why not? It's part. I'm waiting for my cam still, so I'll try to bang that out, get a little more flow out of these. Especially, I'm looking for a lot more like lower lift flow. I don't really use big cams, really. The biggest cams I use are like this one that's stored down in that pile wrapped up. It's only a 600 lift cam. My other race cam was a 620. I actually damaged that in storage and ended up having to throw it away, but because I'm stupid. So the newer cam that's coming to put in this is only like I don't know, 585 lift actually, with maybe like a 110 lobe separation, and the 255-ish. I'm rounding around there at 50. So, you know, lower lift flows on a cam like that are where you want to try to focus your work, because you don't really have a lot of high lift, you know. So you have, plus you see the lower lift numbers on two sides of the cam, not just the peak. So, you know, there you theory on porting and stuff for that. But all right, I figured I'd just throw out another video, let people look at it. Yeah, again, these are Indy SRs. Good heads. They got a raised exhaust port and really high floor, I guess. But I did one more thing I wanted to talk about, and I forgot. Well, sometimes you're doing these videos on the fly like this and you think of shit while you're talking, and then you forget about it. Let me see if I can find a good. Anyway, I did do some extra work here on this, just the smoothing off the seat to the short side radius turn here, and more than the Indy supposed you know, Indy factory porting gave it. So that's a really good transition into the short side radius. I did, you know, it rounds nicely there. So like I said, and I did do a little more polishing all around compared to their fairly basic, you know, knockdown of whatever high spots they did. Of course, you know, like I said, I don't trust Indy, so maybe they didn't do anything. Who knows? At their factory. That's a pretty important area though. But anyway, I'll sign off. Have a good time. Later.